Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Simon Payne.
This month, we're talking about Far Sector by writer N.K. Jemisin, artist Jamal Campbell, and letterer Darren Bennett. Now, in case you need a refresher, Far Sector is the story of Green Lantern Joe Mullen, who has been assigned to a galactic metropolis known as the City Enduring. In the city, no one feels emotions, which is what makes a recent rash of violent crimes so shocking. As Jo investigates these crimes, she discovers that the city's history, people, systems, and politics are more fraught than she imagined, and that they might all be coming to a head. It's a good book. Had fun.
Do you need emotions to kill someone?
Hey, so here, we gotta talk about that, I guess, but first let's welcome Simon.
Oh yeah, Simon, hey, welcome back.
Simon, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Simon, hypothetically, do you think you need emotions to kill people?
No, psychopaths do it all the time.
I was thinking by the end of the book, I was like, yes, crimes of passion and things exist where people get mad or upset or whatever, and that happens. But also, I feel like emotions like keep us from killing people a lot of the time.
Right?
Yeah, like fear of consequences is an emotion, yes. Also, like
Yeah.
we see like how cold and calculating Marth is in that scene where they're like coming back to the council and he's like, "Hey guard, I know about your AT-AT boyfriend. How would he feel about the fact that you like that dude has gotten people killed before? Let's be real." Like,
Well, that dude is also on the blocker drug, so
well, that's what I'm saying is like Marth well emotionally stunted or whatever, like ordered the riot police to fire on the rioters too during that
right.
riot. Like
Yeah.
the fact that there are no murders is a little like it does break down a little bit.
Well, they're also
Like
just
people would
emotional.
murder
Like
people
everyone
just
was emotional to begin with. Like when they were describing the block and the fact that this is the council, and then they had that scene where like the AT-AT representative insults
is about to
the
say meat
captain,
salad, which is a
and she
derogatory term
blows
that you
up at
probably
her,
wouldn't
and
use.
just like,
Yeah, and like so it's either
and
like
there's
one.
just imagine what they would be like without emotional blockers. Like okay.
So for me, the way it
Yeah.
works, because I had put together this like list of notes for each issue to kind of like organize at least what happens in the plot chronologically, because we were talking before recording about how things like really heat up, especially in the end. It's hard to like make sure you know which event is like which events happen in which order, and like we're professional podcasters, so we need to do that. But like in my notes for issue 2, I wrote like basically that like the fact that they're a quote unquote emotionless society just like it doesn't work for me. It's not what's happening in the book. Like the fact that whatever the emotion exploit does like inhibits their emotions or like tamps
Mhm.
them down, like that makes more sense to me and works. Because
Yeah,
like yeah,
as I
they're
read it,
so emotional throughout it.
it felt more like Vulcans than like robots, like
Yeah.
the emotions exist. They just don't express themselves as strongly or as easily as um, a human might without the drug that I can't
Switch
remember the
off.
name. Switch
Switch
off,
Yeah.
off, yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, it's like
Just weird.
that exact scene I think is where it broke
It
down for
just
my reread is like,
it
okay,
was just such a
you
clear
wouldn't
like,
care about being called a meat salad if you didn't have emotions. Like you would just move on, right?
and it was weird because that was the scene that they used to show that they were
They don't
on.
have emotions, yeah.
It's like, but, okay, if this is what I'm expecting for the emotionless depiction, like it's gonna be real hard for you to show me what the like unrestrained emotion would look like if that's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Simon's comparison to the like Vulcans in Star Trek is actually pretty apt.
Yeah, and then they have a bunch of orgies every 7 years, just like
And
Well, they're
far.
like once a generation they have an uprising to try and get the emotion exploit.
oh, that's
The
right, yeah.
field. So basically kind of the same thing. Simon, this is where I normally ask why you picked this book for the podcast, but I feel like this was a group choice. I don't know.
You bought me this book for the podcast.
This is true. I do like I'm very happy to be reading this
Truth
book
comes
for the
out,
podcast.
No, it's just with work and family and other stuff, I had trouble. I wasn't reading as many comics outside of this, so I had a couple ideas floating around, but no strong feelings towards one or the other. And Matt pointed out that I couldn't do all of the season of Scott Pilgrim television show because it's not a television show podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
He didn't want to read, whether there's 7 volumes of that manga, like
6, yeah. Which, I
6.
mean, I would read 6 of those, but this, I don't know, we were talking about it, and to me, that feels like a story that it'd be good to read as like a unit, either in like one big giant episode or in like how we did with Sandman and we did it all. Like, I feel like just doing one volume of it, I would be mad about only being able to talk about one volume of it. So
Yeah.
I vetoed that with my dictator power.
No, but like I've been a Green Lantern fan for a long time, and I've championed the best Green Lantern book
It's
of
true.
all
It's true.
on the bottom of our tier list here.
I say by the time this one comes out, the tier list will be out.
Um, but yeah, I mean it's a cool idea. It's a new Lantern. Was she new to this series, or like this is her first solo series at least, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's
she was
completely brand
created for
new. Yeah,
this.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, and then has shown up in some other stuff since because turns out the story was very popular. So,
Which is
Yeah.
weird, right? To have her in the mainstream DC stuff.
yes, it's weird in the way that corporate comics are weird. Like this is
My favorite.
popular. It was often I know, right? It's so very you, Pat. Like it was often its own little corner, and now it's like the same way that they've like pulled in basically John Constantine to be basically a mainstream DC character. It's like this piece doesn't quite fit, guys. But that's okay. You're like we get some good comics out of it every once in a while.
Yeah, the entire backbone of the character is that she's off by herself without
Yeah,
access to the rest of the core.
it's cool that you have a human lantern who doesn't protect just Earth and like
There's
Yeah.
so
one
many
other
human
planet.
lanterns too. So part of well, I guess this is part of the discussion of Pat's question when we get there, but like part of me is like, we have got like so many human lanterns, guys. Did we need another one? I mean, I like Joe though, so
Mhm.
maybe the answer is yes.
I think that, I mean, based on the story, and Simon pointed out, I literally didn't notice the quotes before Simon, so thank goodness you you did a question based on them. But obviously, Jemisin was trying to make a reflection on our society through this story, and it's harder to do that from an alien's perspective,
Yeah,
right? You
he's
need
definitely
someone,
the audience substitute.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are like specific characteristics that I think make it so this story wouldn't work without Joe specifically, or a character that is similar to Joe at least. Like, let's just do Pat's question. We're there. I was gonna do Simon's first, but I feel like I talked us into Pat's.
Sure. My question is, how would you compare Joe to the other Green Lanterns from Earth?
We got to
Yeah,
start with the
see,
ring, right?
yeah,
Sure.
the ring is very cool actually. Like I really enjoy this twist on the ring that NK Jemisin has come up with, where it doesn't need the power battery, instead like constantly recharges itself based on like Joe's own willpower, and her willpower is not like the quote unquote Jeff Johnsian like ability to overcome great fear. It's like the ability to persist despite great fear,
Hmm.
Yeah.
which is so very cool. um like really interesting take on it.
I do think it's funny that her actual Sojourner,
Mhm.
her full first name, is like maybe a little bit too on the maybe a little bit too on the nose for this
No,
character,
no,
but
Pat, it's comic books, baby. It's superhero
it's
comic
quite literally what she is what her name is. It's like,
A
wow, I'm
bad
glad you ended
guy's
up here.
Pat, are you also a hater of Roy G. Bigelow, the Rainbow Raider?
I'm glad she's living in a place that isn't her like birthplace and making she's literally a sojourner. But whatever. It's
There's
okay.
a Green Lantern, the Green Lantern villain whose name is Sinestro. Like,
I don't understand. I don't see your point.
at
I mean,
no
Sinestro
also
point
is a
like
perfect
in the
name.
core they're like, "Hey, like, should we keep an eye on this guy?" Like,
I don't know. He's the best Green Lantern right now, so it's probably fine.
Dude's pink and has got a rockin' mustache. He's fine.
I mean, also a throw to Sojourner Truth, I would imagine, too, right? So
Yeah.
there's that, but yeah,
Wait,
Pat,
what?
you are
Who's
right,
that?
it is on the nose. Sojourner Truth from Wikipedia here, because I did do a quick look up. American abolitionist and activist for African American civil
Oh,
rights, women's rights, and
yeah.
alcohol temperance. So,
There you go. That's awesome. But anyways, back to my question.
yes. So I do think the book doesn't work with the current Green Lanterns, which like if there's gonna be a new Earth Green Lantern or like a human Green Lantern, I guess, like you really gotta like justify it to me because there's like 7 of them now. Yeah, Hal, John, Guy, Kyle, Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz. Okay, let's go with 6 then, at least main ones. There's also Teen Lantern now, so there's that.
What?
We don't talk about that.
Man.
And anyways.
I don't keep up the canon, so I don't know like who's around at any one given time. But yeah, like especially when they dip into other stuff with the Blackest Night and Brightest Day and like some of the glimpses you see of the
Yeah.
non-human lanterns, it's always so cool. Um, even Ring of Fire is just like we're just gonna have a robot or a um, like a knight or what you like it's just
Yeah.
rather than just like some guy in spandex. Like the ring recharging is also goes along with her personality because um while she does have like these bursts of emotion and strong will, she also has like this ebb and flow of fear and anxiety in her life too, where like she can't just fly at will. Like she has to like concentrate on not falling to death every time she does it. Versus like Guy Gardner's always like exploding with willpower energy and is just like ready to go whenever. And she has just a kind of slightly different approach than some of the other lanterns we've seen so far.
I
Yeah.
definitely think with this and somewhat with Grant Morrison's The Green Lantern, I don't know if I was just being naive, but I never really thought of the Green Lanterns as a policing force, as cops.
Oh
But
no,
that's what they
that's
are.
the whole deal, man. They're space cops.
No, totally. And like,
Yeah,
I think I knew that. It just never really like, I don't know, came to terms with what that meant.
Yeah, because I mean, like, so much of the like Jeff Johnsian part of it is like, yeah, they're kind of space cops, but it's really just like a fantasy series. Like during
Yeah,
that era, like it's very much just like a goodies versus baddies fantasy
right. It's
series
like
more so.
intergalactic threat as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah, as opposed to like police procedural, which a lot of this is.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that I would say that Joe doesn't like, but the other lanterns have always felt like they were like proud of the badge. Like they were always defending the core, or it was like they revolved around being a part of the Green Lantern Corps. That was such a major part of who they were. And Joe doesn't feel that way. Like it's not really a part
sure.
of, like she uses it as a tool to help the community she's working with, but not like she doesn't use it as like a wall to separate herself from other people.
Yeah,
Yeah, she uses her power and privilege as a means to do like good for the
Yeah.
people she's supposed to be protecting rather than like in itself like yeah, that kind of like I get a uniform and a ring and I get to be proud of this thing rather than like I'm proud of what I get to do with these tools.
And I think that was probably part of the reason they chose not to have her fly around in a green bubble above everyone else. Like she's forced to use public transit or like
yeah,
taxi
The
services.
taxis.
taxis and subways. Yeah,
So she's like one of the people as opposed to like the
Ask an old
alien
lady to get her
god
down
that's
from a
flying around.
tree.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
that was
also
great.
fits with some of her like getting knocked down, getting back up again arc in this too. Like I think multiple times in this story, she's like kind of knocked down, and like the ring being completely out of juice sort of represents that too. But she's always slowly recharging at the same point too, and like gonna
Mhm.
come back and mess you up. So I think that kind of fits too. I do get like some shades of angry John Stewart, like when he's written angry a little bit in Joe, like there's a little bit of the Hal Jordan bucking of authority, but like Hal every once in a while doesn't do that either. It's so weird because like all the other Green Lanterns have so many stories, so they have like there's various versions of all of them.
Mhm.
So it's like kind of hard to compare that way. But like her constructs are
I was
very
gonna
much
get
like
to her
Kyle Rayner
constructs,
constructs.
Yeah.
Like they're very cool, artsy, mecha, like imaginative things like an actual artist would
Yeah,
draw or whatever. Like as opposed
because
to
Hal and John's are more like mechanical, right? Like their vehicles, they're like sleek designs, and hers are more abstract and fluid and like, yeah, watercolor oil paintings or whatever, rather than like hard corners.
yeah, Hal's are like very simple. Like it's a laser or it's a boxing
Yeah.
glove or it's like a giant jet turbine. Like there's
Yeah,
not like they're not like cool. They're dumb. And like John's I think are usually like more architectural now because they really lean into his like being an architect. So
yeah,
or more military even sometimes too. Like a lot of times he has like a green sniper rifle now because they started playing up his the military service aspect of him too. So in that way, like she also kind of compares to John in that they're both former military before becoming Green Lanterns.
Mhm.
what hasn't this girl done?
She has done a lot, right? Like
Mhm.
that's actually the page I have open right now in my browser because I have this one digitally, and like I've got the pages of her background from issue 5 because I was like, if I need to like run back through anything, it's
Mhm.
probably that because there's so much stuff compressed into those like 5-6 pages.
While we're on her constructs, we can talk about her uniform, her suit too, because it's got that cool retro vibe, like her big um, pointed rim sunglass kind of face
That's a
mask,
construct,
and
which I think is great. Like she's willing
Yeah.
those
yeah,
on her.
and her kind of like, it's kind of like whatever the genre is called for like Power Rangers, that kind of like
Mhm.
um to Sentai, is that what it is? The
Yeah.
like 80s, early 90s Asian martial arts kind of thing, but like as if it were in the early 60s. Like everything's like sharp corners and also like smoothed out edges at the same time.
Yeah, like the buttons up the side.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of manga influence throughout too, like in her like some of her constructs obviously and like just the paneling too. Like a lot of the page designs feel very manga to me.
She's got little like knuckle ridges for when she's
Yeah.
punching
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, definitely one of the like coolest Green Lantern costumes for sure.
Oh, and her ring itself, it's got like the filigreed kind of adornment to it, rather than just being like some of them are just
The
big
flat
chunky
ring.
rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, slightly more intricate in the way that her ring is slightly more intricate, like rules wise too, I feel like.
Mhm. I also like that her constructs are, and the intros to the issues are like pop culture-y,
Mhm.
like since she is one of the younger or on the younger side of the lanterns, since she's newer, like when she goes to the digital world, she like makes a like auxiliary jack or like a jack and like jacks herself
From the
into the
Matrix.
Yeah.
internet,
Yeah.
into the matrix. Yeah,
And they go full Matrix at the end of that issue too, like they're just wearing the like
yeah.
Like
black
Morpheus.
trench
Yeah.
coats. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
she
I
just
think
turns into Trinity.
like
Yeah.
another key difference that I think is really important to the story too is that the actual conflict in this story is not solved by hitting it with a green boxing glove, like it's solved by talking.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's really key. And like I like it when superhero comics especially do that because like a lot of superhero comics is just like wish fulfillment, beat 'em ups or whatever. But like at the end of the day, the message really should be that we're trying to aim for something better. Where big energy fist beat 'em ups don't have to happen. So I really appreciated that, and I don't think that's something you're as likely to see in one of your mainstream DC Green Lantern comics, where Hal Jordan's just gonna punch Sinestro again, right?
We can also talk about how they incorporate like diversity into this book with I think without like kind of jamming it in too much, like without making it awkward and haphazard. Like
Sure.
you've got a woman of color with a rail thin, skinny body figure who has love interests of multiple genders and kind of the AI people are sometimes like kind of non-gendered or androgynous looking, and it's just all kind of representing every possible person you could in one comic book. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
none of it's ham-fisted. Like it's all very nuanced. And I think that I don't know, obviously that shows like a level of depth of thought in the story and the characters and the world building too. Like as more and more layers of the city enduring like become unpacked from issue to issue, it's just kind of wild to think about how much work it must have taken to think about what this society has looked like over time and how it came to the point that it's at when we enter the story. Differences between each of the races too, which I guess maybe
Yeah.
dovetails us into my question.
Look at you.
Oh my God, we did it. We're professional
Oh
podcasters.
my
No joke.
god.
I thought we were going to start with Simon's question when we started this.
Just hard zagged.
It's going to do it last. Yeah, so my question was, which of the City Enduring's three alien races is your favorite and why? Um, I can take it first, I guess. I like the AT-AT. The AT-AT are cool.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that.
I don't know, like, I have this such like, this weird relationship with technology where I both fear and love it at the same time. So, like, watching I don't know, the stuff about being able to override people? No, don't you dare. Don't you dare ever override me.
Yeah, I also like that the AT-AT, since they don't have like corporeal forms most of the time, and even when they do, they don't like eat and sleep and do stuff that like biological beings do. They have to sustain themselves on things besides food and water, which is intellectual property. Like
The
it's jokes
memes.
and memes and art and um, the more metaphysical things that aren't biological. So
And I think that makes the like the central conflict of this story where it's like, hey, does this society actually need emotion to exist healthily? Like so much more potent when there's like a third of probably more, I guess, if the digital citizens actually like take up less space. I don't know what the actual
yeah,
breakdown is of like which race is like dominant population wise. Like a third of the population is basically just starving because there are no memes, there are no songs, there's no slang. Like they run on ideas and there aren't any because ideas take emotion. Which again, like there must be some sort of emotions because otherwise no one would do anything, right? It'd just be a planet of depressed people. So there's again the exploit doesn't quite work as a concept, though it is a good like it's a good tagline, I guess. It's easier to say than their emotions are dampened, but
yeah. Well, it certainly slowed the production of those things. Like, why, why make things to enjoy when you don't fully
enjoy them,
enjoy
yeah.
them?
And like, can you even make those things if you don't have like the emotions to feel, I don't know, create like creativity or whatever?
Which is kind of what like I have trouble with some of Marth's stuff. I guess we don't know how long ago he started taking the.
No, he says he's been
Switch
doing
off
it for like ever,
for
basically.
forever, yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that line
And
because
except the
like
rest of the council is also not taking switch off. And the council's family. So I don't know who's on
yeah,
switch off. The common people are on switch off.
because like he's got all this ambition, but like achieving a goal seems kind of hollow when you like can't feel proud about it or satisfied that a job's done. Like if it's just like, oh, I did a thing and then I did another thing and then I did another thing.
Yeah, I mean that at least like kind of makes sense to me in that there's some amount of logic to I should do this because it is like the best thing to do. But at the same time, you're right. Like, why would anyone why would anyone do anything if they didn't have emotion? I don't know. Anyways, which of the alien races did you guys like?
I'm gonna say the carnivorous plant people, the Kitopli.
Yes,
I
the
don't know how.
Cavatapi, as Pat has been calling them.
Just because they're so weird and they're so sci-fi, and I don't know, they're really cool looking. Because I think the Na are fine, but they seems like there's less variation. You've got some skin colors of every once in a while, like a tail or a wing is slightly different, but like it's just like
They're the
every time
most
you see,
human. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
and
the
I
most
wouldn't.
like relatable and easy. Whereas it's like, no, this guy's got like a flower for a head, so deal with that.
He wants
Like,
to eat you.
yeah,
I would assume the Na are more human on purpose, so there's at least one race that like a reader can
Yeah.
kind of just understand. Like there's one less
hmm
set of things to like
For sure.
unpack.
It took me reading it the second time to realize that the Na have 7 fingers.
Is it
1, 2,
7? I know there's
3,
at
4,
least
5. Yeah,
6.
7. They
Yeah, I
got
think
2
it's 7, yeah.
thumbs
It's
and
his thumb
5
on each
fingers.
side. Okay.
I didn't notice that the whole time I read this first time.
He even says it
Uh,
when she puts on the glove that she doesn't have enough fingers for the glove, Pat.
hmm
didn't catch it. I mean, the book literally starts zoomed in on a Na hand.
The hand, yeah. To
Didn't notice.
be fair, I'm not sure if I realized that one, so no shade thrown.
I also like that the plant people, like eating people isn't just like I'm a hungry thing. It's like it helps me become fulfilled. Like
Yeah, it sort of felt
it's
like a
a
sex thing
spiritual.
a little
It's
bit.
like love, kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
Because when they're just when I can't remember the character's name, the chief of police friend slash
Sizzin,
lover,
Sizzin?
Sizzin,
Sizen
Sigh,
on the
Sizz,
cliff, by the cliff. Near the cliff.
somewhere near a cliff.
When she's describing to Joe the history of the Cavatappi, like the last scene is like I'm pretty sure like a sex scene. Like there's a naked Ka in front of or not. What is the name of these species? Gosh darn it.
Topley and the Na.
Nah. There we
Yeah.
go. I had it
Yeah.
open. I
There's
couldn't
a
find it.
there's a plant man eating a man, and the man being eaten looks happy about
Totally
it.
into it. Yeah.
Looks
Mhm.
looks into it. Yeah.
Like yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
and it
Oh.
sounds
Okay.
like usually it's a consensual thing. Like
Yeah.
it's usually a thing where I'm assuming it's somebody who's like dying or they've gotten to the point where they're like, I'm okay with this. You need this. Like, let's both willingly do this together.
It is interesting that 2 of the 3 species are sort of starving in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kitopli are purposefully not devouring sentient life that they usually would to feel whole, and then the AT-AT don't have the
Yeah.
memes.
And it's like to build that tension, right? It's just like we put a giant band-aid by making us less emotional so we'd stop killing each other and ourselves
Mhm.
instead of addressing like the deeper issues. We're just gonna like push all of our feelings down and not think about it. And then,
Oops.
there's an uprising every 12 years or like 12 times in however many centuries. And people are dying now. But yeah, as we learn later on, it's a little more calculated with a revolution brewing kind of intentionally rather than haphazardly. But
Yeah.
Well, this time the revolution is being started by one of the 3 people who actually has power, so it might
Well,
work.
2
yeah,
of the 3, right? Because
Oh yeah, I guess
the
yeah.
first take Hopley.
Yeah, it's actually
Thorn.
kind of on side at
Thorn.
least.
Yeah. I like the Cavatappi.
It's a good noodle.
It is. It's very good. But I don't know. The AT-AT, I don't. There hasn't been a good depiction of internet culture in comic books for me. This got closer than the Superman and the Authority.
Oh yeah, I mean that was wild.
I could stomach this one much more than literal internet trolls from that one.
Yeah, I mean, this one's kind of weird too in that it's said that they move. I mean, it's hard to depict cyberspace in a way that both would quote unquote be accurate but also makes sense. I think the time jumps in
Sure.
this actually were kind of cool, like the staggered time
Yeah.
jumps where it's like, how do we get here? What are we doing now? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to interact with this.
Taking a rest at a diner in the middle of a chase.
But then eventually like stuff has to happen linearly because otherwise you can't read a story. So there's
Well,
that.
didn't Can Has say that like a minute in real time is years for an at? Like
Yeah, because she had been like mining what
memes.
cryptocurrency or whatever
Yeah,
for
yeah.
50 years. It's basically in their time.
But had it been only an hour, like
I think it had
meet
been
I
time,
think they said a day is like a year or something like
it
that.
had
I
been a
can't remember
shorter amount of
exactly what
time.
page.
I could have sworn she said a minute is maybe she was being dramatic, but a minute of your time is a year.
Yeah, I mean to
It
us
just
every
blows my
minute.
mind. It's like their society is like millennia older than the rest of the people on. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like again, they can hack basically anything it seems like. So like if they really wanted to take over, it feels like they could, but maybe that's just my latent AI fears coming
I
through.
think that's
I
the
don't
problem when
know.
you try to do like an AI culture. Like they would move so much, like progress so much faster.
Yeah, she does say every minute is like one of your years.
Yeah,
So
that's
Oh, wow.
insane. That's insane.
yeah, the progression would be very
So
fast.
one council meeting for the counselor must like
Be so slow, yeah.
You're just constantly on
ah,
your phone.
that's insane. Like I don't like I get what they were trying to do, but it's just so hard to wrap like you can't look directly at it. You kind of just like look at the edges of it. Otherwise it's not gonna mesh.
Right track, yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. It was cute and I like Ken Has and her she likes them cat memes and Doge. Doge is gonna
Those
be
dank
huge.
Earth memes.
I don't
It's
know. I
like,
think
yeah,
the
other planets have memes, but there's something special about Earth memes.
yeah, there's something off about her. Yeah. I don't know, the
I
Na'ar are
guess,
okay. They're just they're the human stand-ins with wings and
yeah.
poisonous
I was gonna say I
barbs.
do like their like Battlestar Galactica slash Quarian from Mass Effect thing where they
Oh,
just
they were
like
on ships for a
The
while.
ship
lived
Yeah.
on
plans,
ships
yeah.
after they destroyed their planet.
Yeah, I wish they sort of I mean, obviously there wasn't room in this because barely room for the story they were trying to tell, but like the one thing that I love about this, surprising probably no one, but is the world building. The world
No
that was
way.
built around this. It's crazy, right?
Shocked,
The
shocked.
mystery is okay. It's not like it was all right. You could sort
I
of see
mean,
where
I
it was
think
going to end
that's
up.
uh, I mean, I think that's true regardless. Like the mystery is just like, okay, there's a dead body, cool. Now you're reading the story. And the real story is about this entire society that
Yeah,
mirrors ours in certain ways, right? Where there's racism
literal
and
content
there's
farms and everything.
slavery and
Yeah,
there's black markets and there's all sorts of other stuff that like is like in a way that I think we talked about already, isn't a direct hit you over the head with a hammer mirror, which is very nice. Like it's more subtle than that. You get to see it through Joe's eyes, a person who has experienced all of these things or variations of these things on Earth
Hmm.
before coming here.
Mhm.
Yeah, the murder mystery is basically just a feint to get you to start reading about this like very complex, nuanced world.
Did you guys realize it's like a Dyson sphere?
Yeah,
Again, didn't didn't get that
It
the first
mentioned
time
how like
around.
the sky changes colors certain times of day to like
Yeah, I got that it
mimic.
was like a fake. They weren't on a planet; that they're on some sort of artificial station kind of thing. But I didn't
Yeah.
get that like they show you a picture of it, but they don't say it in the text. And I guess I just never gleamed like, oh, they're a
I think
Dyson sphere.
at one point they do say it's a Dyson sphere, but it is easy to skip. And the first time I reread it for the podcast here, I was reading it on my Chromebook, so I like the 2-page spreads are always a little bit rough. Like I was rereading it again on my like on my laptop today, and the 2-page spreads come across a little bit better then, and the Dyson Sphere spread is much easier to understand when you can see it all at one time.
Yeah. I was reading on a tablet and I was doing the like panel by panel view, and then usually if there's like a page spanning image, it'll like zoom out before you move on to the next page. So some of the sky ones were a little clearer there. But yeah, there's some pretty cool 2-pagers in here, or even single page.
Yeah, I mean, on the
art
whole, the
shots in the
art
world.
is really good.
Jamal Campbell kicks ass. Kicks so much ass.
I did notice a little like discrepancy in like character designs towards the end. It felt like it's not quite what they were in the beginning, but it wasn't like awful or anything.
That just happens over time. Also, I feel like with any sort of story, stuff gets like a little bit tighter or changes a little bit as it goes. I'm looking at the 2-page spread of her dancing with Marth right now, and that one's so good. That might be my favorite 2-page spread in the book. Not a fight scene, not a big galactic thing, just a couple people dancing.
Yeah, I liked most of this book. I had trouble believing Joe falling for Martha a little bit because he felt like a creep to me the whole time. So I was just like, I don't understand her attraction to him, but
He's a hot guy. Come on.
Capable, he's confident, he's in touch with his emotions when he's on drugs.
Yeah.
I can change him.
I mean, he's, I don't know, at least like moving things in the right direction, it feels like, even if he's doing so in maybe not the best way.
Well, I mean, I don't think she ever had like ideas for a relationship with him. I think it was just a one night stand.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
their thing is just like a
He is a pretty man.
semi-complicated
I
whatever
get it.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to play Uno though.
Which I don't get because, like, of all the Earth stuff, Uno has like very little strategy. Like,
Cool. Moving on.
I was gonna say, should we move on to Simon's question? Which we are now doing at the end of the podcast rather than at the start.
That's where it deserved to be all.
all right. So like I said, I was reading on a tablet and really enjoyed the intros and outros of the issues because they have like the little like recap of what's been happening, usually with like a stylistic like memo's the wrong thing, but kind of like a recap, and then also with the like aliens and Matrix references.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
a parody.
all those homage ones.
Featured among them is a quote, and they usually have to do something in that issue or in the story as a whole that Joe and the other characters are facing, and they're largely by. Are they all black?
No,
George
because
Carlin.
one is Richard.
Oh, George
one is
Carlin.
Richard
Okay.
Nixon, so very
And
much
Nixon.
not.
Oh yeah. Okay. So they're majority people of color, like authors, artists, Miles Davis, musician, activists, things like that, talking about like societal change and how it affects individuals, and then sometimes it's from the other side because it's Richard Nixon trying to stop civil rights. So I was asking, what is your favorite of those quotes, or what do you think is the most appropriate for the story or a particular character within?
You want to go
I mean, they're
first,
all
Sam?
pretty powerful quotes. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the last one the best, which is I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept, by Angela Davis, who is a feminist and political activist professor and active member of the Communist Party of the United States. So, yeah, just like the mantra of like what is it a prayer, or is like the thing that like God give me the grace
Yeah, it's definitely like a Christian religious thing, that saying.
to like change the things I can, accept the things I cannot change, and
Which
And
just
is
like
the
knowledge is
wisdom to know the
rich.
difference.
uh,
Look at us
yeah,
go.
there we go, we got there.
Good little Catholics.
Um,
Hey, Simon's Lutheran.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Simon.
Don't you bundle it in with us. Come on.
And Angela Davis is just like, fuck that. Like, there are things that can and should be changed, and I can't accept pretending to be okay with them any longer. So that idea of to remove the passive side of it, to be active and to stand up for what you believe in is really characteristic of what Joe does in this story, and what some people are doing um, today with stuff like she said she's a proponent of things like the Occupy movement and boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaigns. So yeah, just like acting on what you believe in for the greater good.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me as being the one that sums up the story because it's last. Like the last issue probably does have the like let's sum up the entire story quote. I do also I don't know about you guys, but like reading this going into a what is going to be a very contentious year in 2024. Like right, so we're recording
Yeah.
this between Christmas and New Year's basically, which is part of why it was a little bit of a all right, let's reread it quick. But um like yeah, reading this like with people like votes being suppressed and like the people in
Yeah.
power trying to deny people the ability to change their society or like even like straighten things out. I don't like it's gonna be a rough year. So I mean, I think that I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Quote is gonna be relevant soon. Well, maybe it won't. Hopefully, it won't be as relevant as it might be.
I
But
mean,
we're already kind of there. So
Gerrymandering, and then with the AT-AT thing, they closed
yeah, I have to pay to
the
like corporealize yourself to get to the voting.
So
yeah,
like it was in-person voting only. They got rid of any like their version of mail-in ballots.
Hmm.
Like,
yeah. There were a couple times I was directly reminded of Wisconsin politics in this. The first was like the
Yeah.
divide and conquer reference, which was like a good old shout out to Scotty Walker, one of many proponents of divide and conquer in politics. And then the it was something about the legislative maps. I don't remember exactly what now, but we like basically roughly around the time of this recording, the Wisconsin Supreme Court just kicked our gerrymandered legislative districts. So we'll see how that turns out once it
yeah.
shakes out for real. We'll see if we get to the real Supreme Court, not the baby Supreme Court. But
Yeah.
Maybe get like a third-party service that isn't partisan to do a fair map based on where people actually live instead of based on who they vote for.
yeah, we'll see.
Good thing. Yeah.
Pat, what was your quote?
It's rough because they're all really powerful quotes.
They are.
I mean, what resonated with me, it's stuff where three white guys talking about in a book
Yeah,
that
I was
obviously
wondering if we were going to
resonates
talk
with.
about that too. It was like, this is one that I really enjoyed this book. I think it has a lot of really important things to say. I feel not completely qualified to do a podcast about it, and
Yeah,
it probably is worth acknowledging that.
like these people
Um,
that are quoted have done such powerful things. And it's not, yeah, like you're saying, it's not really my place to like rank them. It's not what we're doing. We're just
no,
saying
we're
which
not.
one
No,
resonated with
no, we're
us.
Yeah.
absolutely not ranking them. The only
No, no,
ranking
no.
we ever do is on the anniversary
And
special
there was a
episodes.
mistake, and I'm so sorry.
I was right all along. Um,
Um, the ones that really resonated with me, with what we're dealing with, what I'm dealing with our country and our politics. I mean, obviously George Carlin's bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation, but also Octavia Butler's "In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn."
yeah, that was near the top of my list for the one I would pick.
Like, I don't know. I don't know how we move forward at this point. It's getting real messy, guys. Honestly, burning it down and seeing what we can build from, like, what does it mean to burn it down? I don't know. I'm sort of scared to find out, but
Mhm.
I mean, I've been waiting for Civil War II Electric Boogaloo since like 2012, so
Right? I don't know what that like. That's just I don't know.
don't
It's
don't want
scary.
it. I would prefer to avoid it, but I don't know, man.
But I was doing research for all these quotes to help me decide for Simon's question, and the information from Octavia Butler's book that this quote comes from. It's from Parable of the Talents, is the book, which is part of the was it Earth Seed? Yeah. But basically, the setting of the novel uh, is set against the backdrop of dystopian United States. I'm just reading the Wikipedia now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's come under the grip of a Christian fundamentalist denomination called Christian America, led by President Andrew Steele Jarrett, seeking to restore American power and prestige and using the slogan "Make America Great Again," which I can understand. That's a phrase that obviously would come up, but this is published in 1998.
As I say, she died in 2006. So
So "Make America Great Again," and then they talk about the fact that there's existence of these dream masks, these virtual reality thing for Americans to escape from harsh reality.
Oh, you mean it's now time.
It's like, oh, so now, today, right now,
If you want to read the book about basically like some of that in real life, what did I just read recently? It was
it's just,
yeah,
yeah,
I
it hits a
mean,
little real.
it's
there's
really powerful that she like got it so right, but it's so sad that
Not
it's
why though,
still
yeah.
that it's still so exactly what's happening.
Oh, Survival of the Richest is talking about basically like the uber capitalist mindset of like, okay, we're just here to produce and like anything that it's also like a transhumanist mindset too. So like basically as long as the math works out, everything you should do should be furthering humanity's goal to A, become more than humanity is currently now, and B, expand beyond Earth. Like that's the entire goal of these people with the quote unquote mindset, according to this guy who wrote the book. And like it very much sounds the same as this thing where it's like predicated on the belief that humanity's destiny is to travel beyond Earth and live on other planets in order for humanity to reach adulthood. And like like cool, fine, whatever, that'd be great, except basically any sort of ends is like fine or like any sort of means is justify that end, and that's where we get into basically bankrupting the earth and making people's lives shitty so that billionaires can launch rockets into space. So yeah, that's not my official recommendation, but Survival of the Richest, hell of a book. It
Uh,
sucks, but is probably important to read.
yeah, yeah. So I guess I'll go with Octavia Butler's quote for mine.
I don't know, that's a good one. Like, and especially, I don't know, I'm not always a poetry person, but separating out first must burn that way
First
too is,
must burn.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very
separate line
powerful.
for each one.
How about you, Matt?
So I was actually between those two, and the one that I guess I'll pick is not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I feel like that's a lot about of what this book is about, is like the society that I think Marth and so many other people in it recognize that like they've been doing this for so long. They've had this sort of like uprising referendum thing like 12 times. It's like, okay, maybe it's time. Maybe we face it and maybe it goes wrong. Like the end of this book could like backfire completely on this society, right? Probably won't. I don't think so, but it could. Like it's time to do it. Like it's time to face it and figure out what happens next. So I think that
And that's kind of what the last little bit of it is like the unofficial epilogue is kind of Joe saying like, I don't know what's coming next, but I got 6 months to figure out what this new society does with itself, and she's ready to face it now.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting going back to the actual story itself that the widow of the murdered man at the beginning, like the thing that kicks it all off, wasn't angry with the murderer. She was upset with the
anger
government
with
using
society,
switch
yeah,
off,
the system.
because then if this woman had the emotional maturity to control her hunger so that it wasn't completely let loose by being unleashed, then maybe her husband wouldn't have had to die.
It
I
actually
thought that
goes
was really.
even deeper than that, right? Because we find out that woman didn't even wasn't even
I mean, sure,
actually
it
the
turns out,
murderer.
yeah,
Like
wasn't
she was being
in
overridden.
control.
So like that murder is actually caused by the deficit in society that has the AT-AT like starving.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy these sorts of stories where you get to unpack things from the quote unquote real world in a way that you might not consider them before, like through a lens that you wouldn't see just because it's science fiction. Like it's not quite our society, it's a little bit different. I think
Mhm.
getting to do it through an actual human is interesting too, because then you get the peer reflection of our society on theirs and their society on ours, right? Like there's so many times that they call out Earth for being like backwards or like immature or whatever, but at the same time, like they have an entire third of their society that runs on memes. So I mean, a third
Yeah.
of our society runs on memes at this
I
point.
mean,
So who
more than that,
knows?
really.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, all right, boys. Do we want to do recommendations for people who read this and enjoyed this? I do feel like our, I don't know, our collective like Midwest white dudeness maybe did do us a little bit of a disservice in talking about this one. So I would take notes on this one if anyone has notes for us for sure. Feel
Sure.
free to leave some comments, but I don't know. It's a good book. I feel like it's also an important book. I like that DC is republishing it as part of their like $10 trade paperback thing they're doing next year. It's like one of the
Oh,
first 6 books they're
oh,
doing.
nice.
So it's a good one to have out there in cheap, accessible form.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say if you like to look into the people that wrote the or that were quoted in this book, um, I've read "Their Eyes Were Watching God" by Zora Neale Hurston. That's um, a story about the American South in the early 20th century. Um, and then "Things Fall Apart" by, I'm gonna butcher this name and I'm sorry, Chinua Achebe,
Mhm.
which is about a region of pre-colonial what is now Nigeria, and how it was affected by European missionaries arriving there. Um, and then "Go Tell It on the Mountain," which is by James Baldwin. The face what can be changed, nothing can be nothing can be changed till it's faced. Author. It's just a lot of talented, creative people, musicians, artists, poets, authors out there to explore. And then for my more sci-fi pick, if you liked the Marth planning 12 steps ahead, change society incrementally over 1,000 years, I would recommend the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. It's a kind of groundbreaking science fiction series from the 50s. Um, it's the same author as I, Robot, if people are aware of that. And it follows a guy that comes up with a mix of psychology and math/science to predict what could happen in the future. And he lives in a galactic empire that he figures out will fall apart in a certain number of years, and what they can do at the time to rebuild from that as soon as possible, and like kind of reduce galactic suffering incrementally over hundreds of years. Um, it's also, I started listening to it as an audiobook, and then the that expired, the like rental on that, and then I got it in paperback. It's like largely in dialogue, so it sounds like super heady and like it would be really wordy, but it's mostly just characters talking to each other about what's happening, so it seems a little more human than just like an essay about galactic politics. So I would recommend that for people that are interested in the long game.
Nice. Yeah, it's been on my shelf for a while.
Pat?
So I was just gonna say play Mass Effect, which you should still do. It does a good job of building a bunch of different alien cultures and then putting them into politics together because they all got to survive, all got to live together, and it's the world building in that is probably some of my favorite. But
Yeah, and
uh,
the city enduring or the enduring city
yeah,
is
the
kind of like
Citadel,
the Citadel,
hmm
big massive place where all the aliens live.
very similar for sure. So that's a good one. But I would also suggest people look up Citizen Sleeper. It's another game more narrative based. It's not there's not combat in it. It's basically all dice rolls and dialogue choices. But it's very well written. It's near decrepit like huge space station, and you are a android that's about to shut down. You got to rely on other people to help fund your recharge and repair. And it just tells a really good story about just trying to live and relying on others to do so. And I highly recommend it.
Nice. I looked it up. It looks cool.
Yeah, the art's really great.
What about you, Matt?
Oh, thanks, Simon. I really enjoyed The City We Became and its sequel, The World We Make, which are also by N.K. Jemisin. They're novels, not comics. But they're basically about like a group of people who become the spirit of New York City, and they're fighting against basically like an other dimensional incursion that's trying to like rip out the city before it can be like quote unquote born, before it like formally materializes as a city. Like cities only like formally materialize once they have like a certain like weight of culture and population and stuff in this version of the world. And so this like kind of Cthulhu entity is basically attacking New York City, and these 5 or 6 avatars have to defend it and also figure out what it means to be like the living avatar of New York City. It's very cool in the same way that this book's world building is very cool, but it's also set in our world. So if the sci-fi here was like maybe a little bit much for you, that might be a little bit easier. But it also tackles a lot of like real world issues kind of in the same way too. Like it talks about how New York was basically like stolen property from Native Americans. So yeah, like
that's the truth for lots of places.
Yeah, and I mean there's like things about how like I don't know, like the power of money, like because each of them can have like totem items they use. So like one of the guy's totem items is like literally just like throwing cash at people. So
nice.
That's very cool. It's a good set of books. It was originally apparently supposed to be 3, but like N.K. Jemisin got into the second one and was like, it's too real. Like everything's too like I was writing about stuff that I didn't expect to like hit quite as hard, like hit quite as hard as I imagined it hitting when I was planning out the book. So it ended up being 2 books, but it's still good. Would recommend them if you enjoyed the writing in this. So
yeah, I picked up the first of the Broken Earth trilogy I got it for a gift for Christmas actually, the 5th season. So hopefully
I've heard like I mean, obviously like it's got a lot of awards and apparently is good. I know a couple people who have bounced off that one.
All right.
I don't know. You'll have to let me know. But
I bought the first. I didn't buy the trilogy because
you
never know.
No, but like you'll have to let me know how that is, and then like I said, I really enjoyed The City We Became and World We Make, and like they're very like I don't know, not easy reads, but like they're very like relatively straightforward reads, except for the other dimensional nonsense.
Sure.
All right, boys. I think that is going to do it for this month's discussion of Far Sector. As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, and again, we'd take notes on this one, you could email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Simon, thanks for being shoehorned into reading this book that I bought you.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I always love talking comics and just hanging out with you guys. So I will continue to petition you for a Scott Pilgrim
it'll happen
series that I have to be on every episode. And
hey man, we need a new like long form reread series. So
it's true.
If you pitch that before Mike successfully pitches Attack on Titan, I know which one I would pick.
I don't know if I want to read all of Attack on Titan. Good lord.
All right, One Piece. All right, it's 25 years old. There's thousands of issues.